about the weight, but I'm just enjoying the moment. So, in the next session of our 69th lesson, we're going to talk about weight shift. Quite a few of my pupils say, Luther, you don't mention weight shift, you don't tell me how to move my hips, my legs and my feet. And as I explained in the last piece, I believe the leg action is a result of the shot and not the cause. One of my sort of personal golfing heroes is Professor Paul Hurrian. He's a fascinating man. He has incredible knowledge about ballistics and biomechanics and putting particularly. And if ever you want to improve your putting, I recommend you go and see him at his Quintic Putting Laboratory. Being a bit of a kindred spirit, I always used to chat in airport lounges with Paul, and I said to him, Paul, I'd like to have a look at Explanar with your scientific approach, because if Explanar's wrong, I need to know, and if Explanar's right and has something to contribute, you need to know. So, in fairness to Paul, he came down to the Explanar headquarters here, and he gave me a book, and it was a fascinating book. It was a ring binder, and he'd actually used pressure plates to measure the way that the feet work on the ground during the golf swing. And what he understood from his studies, that most of us describe a figure of 8. We go left heel, right toe, left toe. It's this sort of motion. However, the booklet that Paul gave me was every European Tour pro's leg action. And what he found was that the tournament pro would be a figure of 8 going back, left heel, right toe. But to a man, the weight was then linear towards the target. So it wasn't a loop, okay? It was a loop going back, but it was linear. So he knew that the weight shift was going towards the target. And what he also discovered was the better the player, the more accurate and more powerful the player, the longer they were linear before turning left. And you can imagine that, can't you? Now, the mistake would be to try and teach people to make their legs go linear. That would be an error. Okay, what we need to create is an environment where we become linear. Okay, so if I'm hitting a fade, I'm not linear. When I'm hitting excessive draw, I might not be linear. But when I'm hitting neutral draw, then I expect to be linear. Earlier on, I talked to you about the hammer and the post. This is a circular blow, but you know in reality I go down the post. So when I hit the post here in the ground, it's not just a circular arc, it's an elongated strike that goes down it. Now you can imagine that as I go down that strike line, where's my weight? My weight is linear, it has no cause to turn left. Until I get to there, I can go no further, now I turn left. So you can see that Paul observed what the great players do. So what we know is that weight shift is linear. Less so with a fade and less so with a draw. But we're talking about ideal. So, I don't think about my leg action. What I know is that if I give this golf ball an elongated strike down the right side of the fairway and impart draw spin, I believe I'll be linear for a long period. If I hit a fade, I would come across and I would not be linear. Okay, so here's the club. I'm going to coil my shoulder and release the shot. Overcooked it a little bit. I caught the alignment rod as I went back. But I know as I went for the draw, I felt this way, whereas the fade, I might have felt that way. So, I can't finish on that mediocre shot for you. Let's see if I can do a proper job this time. That ball did not hook because it had too much forward rotation. It hooked because I didn't send it down the line for long enough. Okay. So by going through, I stabilised the flight. I know on the last shot, I would have been linear, and the one that hooked had been all over the place. Okay, so again, we're talking about understanding things, but just because we understand something about the golf swing doesn't mean that we have to take it onto the golf course. Let's get back and refresh our basics. We're going to prepare well, we're going to load the belt body, we're going to hit the shot. And what's been happening from the chest down, although I've talked to you about it, is not something you have to worry about. And in all the shots I've just been hitting, when I loaded the left shoulder, I was creating 15 things for you. I didn't have to worry about them. That's not to say that in the practice ground or laboratory conditions you can't examine. You can, but that's not a helpful state of mind when you're on the first tee in the monthly medal.